And we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Live Reality Games, the podcast where we talk about the stuff. I'm Parker Barnett, and as always, I'm joined by Nathan. Nathan, how you doing?
I'm feeling awfully chilly today, almost frozen, some might say, but otherwise I'm doing well.
Well, we are back to cover episodes 11 and 12 of Survivor Angelica, Blessings and Curses, and I must say, what an endgame. These are two phenomenal episodes. I'm both happy and shocked at the quality of gameplay we're seeing in these episodes, which is going to set it up for a really cool finale. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the great panel we have. Joining us for the first time this season, very happy he could join us, is one of the final four players. We got Jared. Jared, how you doing?
I'm excited to be here. I've been following you guys for a long time, so just grateful to be on, and it's great to be here with my fellow triplets as well, all repping the great shirts Cernus got us. So
Very cool. And also joining us, he has been promoted to editor for this season. He's been production for a lot of other seasons. He's been a multi-time player. We got joined us for the first time ever on this podcast. We got Brett. Brett, what's going on?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Excited. Appreciate having me on. And just a thank you to you guys for doing this. It certainly helps to promote our game and all the time and effort that goes into it from all of our crew. It's certainly appreciated that this is something that helps to promote it. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm just glad that you guys support us. We try to do our best. This is a great game. It's really easy to talk about when it's a quality game. So the credit is all to y'all, truly. And finally joining us, we have the host with the most. Very always excited to talk to this man. We got Jason. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Doing good. It's a little cold here as well. Sun's finally out. We had a little snow yesterday. I'm waiting for spring. I'm waiting for nice weather.
Absolutely. It's just getting to that time of year. It's spring. It's almost Easter. I think a lot of places are as cold as what y'all are describing. But nonetheless, we're here in our houses, hopefully all nice and warm. Here to talk about the episode. First off, we like to ask this question before we get started to all of our guests. Jason, I'm familiar with your Survivor Angelica background, but I'd like to ask the other two. Brett, I know you've been around the Angelica spheres for a couple of years now, but I don't know your actual origin, how you found out about it. Can you walk us through how you found about Angelica?
Yeah, so first time I played was 2018, and then played again. I think it was actually 2019, and then played again in 21. But how I first found out about it was I was actually friends with Jason Cernus here, and we were in a roller hockey league. And as hockey can go, sometimes tempers flare. And Jason did a really good job one night of kind of bringing everybody back down to reality, and so. Definitely, I knew him from before, but I grew respect for him that night, and I'd always seen that he had promoted Survivor Angelica. I started getting back into the CBS version of Survivor. I hadn't watched it since I was a kid, even prior to knowing about Survivor Angelica. So it was just kind of a timing thing where I really, got into it and was tuning in every single episode to the CBS version, and then saw that this was available, and so I played and I got hooked. And I think the crew could attest. The time I got voted out my first go around, it stuck with me for I'd say for days, but that night it stuck with me for like 12 hours before I could get over it. So it was done there. I was invested from there. So
Nathan, that's the least surprising thing I've heard. Jason was able to calm the group down and kind of sit everybody down and get them on the same page. I mean, that's what he does every episode of Tribal.
I imagine that you could probably make a whole tribe from that roller hockey group that you all were in there.
Yeah, I think so. You'd have a lot of drama too, for sure.
That would be a fun season.
Yeah.
Maybe a future theme. Roller hockey people versus whatever else theme you want to throw on there. But Jared, I want to get your background on Survivor Angelica. How did you find out about it?
Yeah, so I found out about LRGs in 2022, where I had a fraternity brother tell me about Survivor Buffalo, and that's when I met Alyssa Marie and Taylor Clark and Amy. I don't know their last names, actually. I just know them by their Facebook names, but they're great people, and they highly recommended Angelica. And I'm from the New York City suburbs, so I'm like, I just made the trip to Buffalo. Angelica's a lot closer. So I was excited, and yeah, I was doing some messaging to Angelica on their Facebook page, on their Instagram, just getting advice on how to apply, because really wanted to be on. I really thought it was cool how they promoted their game, and I'm really glad I got to play after this season.
Definitely a good one to be a part of. And I want to come to, before we get into the episodes themselves, Jason and Brett, y'all are behind the camera, and now you've seen the episodes come out. Nathan and I haven't seen the finale yet. We know it just dropped. Very excited to cover that. But I want to get y'all's take, Jason and Brett, on what have been some of these standout moments for y'all as production members for this season. There's been quite a lot of crazy moments. So what moments has stood out to y'all the most?
Yeah, good question. At first, I think what's cool about at least my position in editing it is getting to rewatch it all. And I mean, so we started editing I think back in mid-October and just wrapped up. So however many months that is, and so for the rest of the crew and for the cast, it's a long weekend game. But for me, I got to hang out with everybody, pretty much every weekend, so to speak. So it was pretty cool to get a deep dive in and see every single little conversation and scenario and try to find those hidden gems. But to answer your question, I think obviously, Sandra's idol plays were huge. I think, equal to that was, and I'm sure we'll get into it, the whole storyline with Jared and sort of, running that behind the scenes and on one side convincing people to vote for her and sort of duping everybody, and then on the other side telling her when to play. So that was, I think, a huge turning point in the game. So in terms of big moves or strategy, that's probably it for me. But Matt Culper is a pro's pro in terms of production value, comedic value. You'll see in the finale there's a ton of emotion from him, and that's I guess on a side note, that's what we look for when we cast is you don't have to be a pro on camera, you don't have to be we're not looking for people to act or anything, but just the authenticity and people who really want it, people who care, and just come to the game with that authenticity and effort. That's all we really ask. You don't have to be amazing speaker or give a great monologue or things like that. But I think this year's cast really showed just how much everybody wanted it. And as the game progresses, you can really see people tighten up and get ultra competitive. So those were a couple for me.
So let's do a quick round panel here. Everyone has to give an answer. Who is the confessional MVP of the season? I'll go first. I'll say Jabbar is the confessional MVP of the season. Parker?
Well, you took my answer. I was also going to say Jabbar.
Jared?
I don't want to answer this. I'm obviously going to say me. But if I had to go with, if it wasn't me, I'll go with Culper, and I'll give the supporting actor role to actually Jameson. I really like Jameson's earlier confessionals pre-merge.
Jason?
Yeah, I liked early game. Jameson was great. Towards the end game and kind of through and through, you really see Matt come to the table with a lot of great stuff. And Jabbar was awesome too. I can't deny that. Like, it was just gold through and through. So it's hard to really pick one specific person. We had just a stacked cast. So I'll hold my thoughts for a minute here so Brett can answer, and then I'll give you some more of my insight too.
Yeah, no, Jabbar is a good one. He had me cracking up editing some of this stuff. I mean, especially in the beginning with his lying, denying, manipulating, whatever, however that went. I'll throw a dark horse in there. Alejandro was actually somebody who, just the facial expressions, and he was so like in between people and jumping around and trying to kind of find his way. I enjoyed him, and then I know you asked for one, but I think Veronica did a really good job of strategy and was probably the most cunning player of the season, where she was on an island sort of by herself. She had a little bit of help from Alejandro, but it wasn't much. And it was coming from somebody who knows, what scrambling is like. I kind of liked how, some of her confessionals went.
Yeah.
This is a compliment to Alejandro, but speaking of that, you brought him up. Alejandro has great clickbait face because he's so expressive. Like,
Yeah.
what I mean by that is you can put him in the thumbnail of all the episodes, and you would get a different reaction every time. And that's a compliment to him because he is very expressive and he wears his heart on his sleeve. So that's a good choice. But yes, that's what I thought of when you said that. I'm like, yeah, Alejandro, you're not going to wonder what he's thinking. You just got to look at him.
Yeah, for sure. I'll touch back on. I know you asked Brett and I some of like standout moments, standout players, and things like that.
Sure.
For me, there's a couple storylines that I really enjoy. One of them is Jordan's. And Jordan, I'm sorry, it's just I say Jordan very quickly. I know it's Jordan, but it kind of comes out towards the end of the game. You'll notice I start to change the way I slow down and say her name a little bit better because she corrected me. And wholeheartedly sorry, I never really knew until you told me. But her storyline is great, and it kind of comes to the forefront towards the end of the game here, coming in with little to no game experience and just really shining. There was a spotlight on her, and she did a wonderful job. She really, there's just a great aura about her. She had good energy. She really started to shine as she got comfortable with the game, and towards the end of the game really starts to showcase that. So I really enjoyed that. Obviously, Sandra's double idol play, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, was huge. I mean, those are just big moments. So, and you can see it in everybody's reactions, and that's what we look for. Like Brett said, is, bring authenticity to the game. When we're casting, you could be, the most eccentric person in the world, but we know if it's just an act, like, I don't want an act. I want you to come there and be authentic and build real relationships, and don't treat it, like a quick show or one-day game type where you kind of do those things. You have the opportunity to create a facade and just create a character and go with it. But we want a character, but we want it to be your character, your authentic person. So, it's so hard to cast people. This cast was amazing. Every season we seem to find this great group of people, and we kind of, snowball from there. So I can't wait for 24. And even 25, 26, 27, and what we have. I know people keep applying, and I'll always tell people, keep applying. Just because we say no this year or because we didn't respond doesn't mean it's a no. It's just that you weren't in that bulk that we found that we want for this season, or particular things we're looking for. But all in all, everybody does a great job from cast to crew, and I can't thank everybody enough for the wonderful season year after year that everybody puts out for us.
Yeah, on that point about casting, if I could jump in real quick, like just to let folks know too, like, we're getting like upwards of 100 plus, if not more. I think last year we actually even had more than we did this past year. But like, so it's honestly not a matter of splitting hairs, or there's just so many people that we have applying. It's becoming difficult to even interview everybody. So yeah. To Jason's point, no hard feelings. It's certainly not intentional.
One point that you made, Jason, that I was going to touch on later on, but because you brought it up, it struck in my mind, was I really liked how this past grouping of episodes, we really see an emotional side of Jordan. And what I mean is she's really wearing her heart on her sleeve. Like, I think at one point, after she votes for Sandra the first time, she's visibly upset about this. And before that, she gave a confessional talking about, she's having to break her word as the numbers get smaller and smaller. And that's not something she wants to do, nor she really that's not how she lives her life. So that was really interesting. It's always cool I imagine it's harder for some people who have, one, never played a game, and two, are not that familiar or a huge fan of the show to begin with, who come into this sphere trying to learn it on the as they go, essentially, and now they're tested with, what are you willing to do in a game like this? It's not $1 million, but this game does require lying, it requires backstabbing, and that's going to affect people differently. And I really liked how Jordan was able to just show that. So I'm glad that made the episodes. And yeah, that was a really cool sequence of events, I thought. I'm glad you brought that up, Jason.
Yeah, we actually do touch on just the raw emotion in one of the tribals in one of these episodes. I actually make it a point to talk about how, it's real, it happens, and everybody really starts to connect by the second day, and it becomes very authentic and emotional and real. And if we need to take a moment to just sit back and hug and cry and laugh and smile, we do it. We take it in because it's everybody's here on a different adventure, and I don't want to discount anything for anyone. I want everybody to get the whole moment and soak it all in for what it is. So I try to give ample time for that. If I notice something that, somebody has tears and they want to hug or just talk to the tribe for a minute, we let it kind of just go. We're not in a rush, we just want people to really enjoy themselves.
Yeah, about Jordan, what was really cool about the rest of the cast, and this isn't to say that she was a goat to bring to the end, but the rest of the cast really took her under their wing, and knew that she didn't quite know some of the parameters of just Survivor in general. And you can really see that in, I don't know if there's a ton of moments, in the actual episodes, but in editing things, that really comes out. And I think it's just a testament to the type of people that we cast this year and cast, every year, that it's a family, like we all stay in touch, and it's really cool, or was really cool, just to see, a newbie come in and everybody just kind of accept her with open arms and show her the ropes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jared.
I wanted to just say one thing. I thought her confessional when voting for Sandra was one of the moments of the year. For me, just how that moment, brought her to tears. It was beautiful watching back. I mean, because obviously I don't have that privy when I'm watching. So, and really, we'll get more into it, but just really impressive how she, was calm there, and yeah, everyone wanted to work with her. I wanted to work with her because, she had never played the game before. So, and she just comes off as such a loyal person. She is a loyal person. And I really give her a lot of credit for, you have all these personalities, these strong personalities like myself, Culper, Jason, wanting to work with her. And she just rolled with it. I mean, it was almost to the point I felt like mansplaining, which I hate that because she doesn't need it. She's a tremendous player in her own, outright. But I was just really impressed with her resolve to just deal with all these strong personalities.
Well, we start off the episode. And this leads into a very good question, because we talked about last time. We get some good B-roll shots. Nathan, your favorite. We got B-roll on the podcast, or at least that's what Brett said his nickname was. Brett, answer the question. Where is the B-roll? Just stock footage, or are you guys filming that out there?
Oh no, it's all filmed right on site. Yeah, no, there's a good mix. We have a drone, so flew that a little bit. I think you can tell, what those drone shots are. So try to mix it in. Obviously, I guess I could get into a little bit of like how we shoot things. We have about 9 cameras and then a couple cell phones, and a couple of the cameras, shout out to Kurt and his brother Brian, are, a little bit more filmmaking style cameras. They're a little on the older side, but they still get the job done. Other than that, we're running, not your best, not your top of the line, cameras that are, thousands of dollars. So we try to make it work with what we have. And so some of the footage that to see is, obviously certainly stock footage, and it's just to kind of elevate things a little bit, and so that it breaks up scenes, and so that Nathan likes us, and all the yeah, get the thumbs up, just kind of entertainment value, I guess, overall. But I guess ultimately, in the editing, it's about atmosphere. Like, we want to create this atmospheric feel where you really feel like it's this, middle of nowhere out in the woods. And I think the B-roll helps to do some of that. And then with our theme, that was just fish in a barrel. It was very easy to find some awesome elements, to add in that went with our theme. And so, just tying that all together equals, good entertainment value, good production value. So yeah, definitely some of it's stock footage.
So we get to, a bit of the relationships, just an update. There's only 7 people left. It's very easy to showcase who's close with who. And the main point of this that I want to talk about is, Jared, I know it's been discussed in the episodes, but we have you on the podcast here. What drew you so close to Sandra specifically and made you want her to be her ride or die out of all the cast members?
Oh man, where do we begin? It was not the plan with Sandra. I'll say that. I did a lot of pre-gaming, not intentionally, with Kayla, McKenna, and Carrie, absolutely. And I hate the pre-gaming because, you see how it played out with, me and Kayla. I mean, it was a 7-2 on her. I couldn't throw my game just because of that, pre-game alliance. So, and I also hate it because it's not authentic Survivor. I mean, you don't see it in the real show. So I really don't want to, I'm trying not to play as many games in the future now, just so I can have more of that authentic experience. I hate bringing it up, but that's just the honest truth. So with Sandra, I had a message from her on the day of the game. On the day of the game, she mentions that there's a mutual friend, John V, who you guys may know from Bloomington, who said, Sandra's a loyal player. You're a loyal player. You should, align for this Can You Survive game, because I was promoting it on Facebook, doing a charity. So naturally, that gets out. And I said, hey, I was like, man, I hate the pre-gaming. Stop messaging me. That was my first thought. Second thought was, you know what? I got to be nice. So I'll say, hey, let's talk about it when I'm back. I'm going to be away this weekend. She was like, oh, I'm going to be away too. Are you going to be in New York? And I was just like, one of those memes, like, okay. So she was on my radar just for being a loyal player. And the swap really solidified it because we played the whole game together, right? So ultimately it was hand in hand. And I just looking at Sandra's eyes, you can tell that she's a loyal player. And you just get that from, seeing people. And one other point, Nathan, I know you love Pat. I know you said in a previous episode, he was really my ride or die, because I've seen his game before, and he's a loyal player as well. So a little bit of scouting.
Hey, that baseball alliance,
Yeah. I mean, look, I hate it, right? I hate the pregame alliances. I hate, people know each other. But my first game at Buffalo, I learned that right away, that, that's a factor. And I know you guys have talked about in the previous pod, but I think that also played into the blessing versus curses theme, right? Is it a blessing to know people? Is it a curse to know people? So it just, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously all tried to avoid connections, but this last go around, we said, we're going to bring it all to the table. We've got such a crazy theme and so many twists and so many opportunities to mix it up that having people come in here with the knowledge of possibly knowing someone else, it's either going to bite you in the butt or it's going to help you, or it's going to just, both people are going to have issues. So, we really said, let's just bring in a great dynamic cast and let things unfold the way that they would. We always address it during pregame, situations, and when we're discussing the game, we'll just say, listen, when the game starts, the game starts. Everything that happens outside in the outside world, just keep it out there. Bring in this with a new, you're in a new game now. It's a new opportunity. Don't try to stack your cards with, talking to people in the parking lot before the game. We're a little different. Some other games may, have real strict rules about, signing certain, disclosures saying they're not going to talk to anybody or that they're going to tell people where they are, what they're doing. And, we trust that people are going to try to play and be as fair as they can. And for the most part, we get that. A lot of people say, yeah, no, I don't want to, share a hotel with someone or share a car ride down to the campground if we, picking them up from the airport. Or they'll just be real quiet and talk about life instead of, the game itself, which is nice. We appreciate that people want to do that. So I'm never one that's going to try to turn somebody away from, the logistics of getting here and say, you can't ride with somebody that's coming down because we don't want you to talk to each other. No, listen, y'all spend money to come to us. We're gonna accommodate you as best we can. So in the parking lot before the game, we gather everybody around in a big group. It's almost I don't know if we have footage of it from this season, but there's just a big circle of people, and they're all just standing there with their stuff, hanging out, just pounding food and drinks and just like hydrating because they have no idea what they're in store for, if they're gonna get food or not. So they're just like, the nerves are there, and this kind of helps bring everybody down to the same level. And I even bring that into, the beginning of the game. I say, everybody take a deep breath. You're here. Let's just take a deep breath. Let's settle it in. Let's get to know each other. So, it's tough when people comment about, well, so-and-so knows somebody. How do you guys handle that? And we don't want to play your game knowing that there's like 3 people that know each other. And it's like, this game, I mean, you can look at our cast and know guaranteed that probably almost all of them, with a handful of them that don't know each other. And by the end of the game, they're all like this now. So now what happens to other LRGs when they want some of these people for their cast? It's like, they're all going to know people. It's tough. At some point, this community is going to get to that point where we're all going to know each other. And, who am I to say I want to go play a game? Or is anybody ever going to let me play a game? Because I want to play again, and I don't know where I'm going to have an opportunity. Because I keep running through all these casts knowing all these people, and it's like I got a target on my back right from the beginning. So if I ever got cast again, we'll see.
We should have a host game. Just throwing it out there. We should have a host game. All the hosts get together. That's
I like that.
I don't know.
Or even if you can't get like a whole cast, get a tribe. Like that would be a lot of fun. And just to comment on your point, Jason, the way, and I guess it's different because I've been in this kind of gaming sphere for a couple of years now. To me, the way I almost look at it is like, you can almost expect at least a couple people to know each other if you're in a game. And that's not to say that's good or bad or whatever. That's not to say the production team shouldn't do everything they can to crank down on that, obviously. But to me, it's almost like, unless this is just your first game and you have no idea about this community or that at all, that's probably shocking if you find out after the fact there's pre-existing relationships. But if you've played at least one game, you're aware that there's a decent chance a couple of people in the cast know each other. So it's almost like in regular Survivor, there's twists and swaps and idols and all these things that there's a lot of luck involved. And getting cast for a game, that's kind of lucky too. That's kind of luck based too, if you ask me. It's just, there could be that in the game, and you just got to navigate the best way you can. So if it's a deal breaker for people, I get it, but it's going to be hard to find a game where that's just not a thing at all.
Yeah. And I'll say
also.
Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
I do also think if you look at the boot order from the last few years, and even just live games generally, a lot of people who are extremely well connected go out very, very early. So it's not a sure thing at all. What were you saying, Brett?
Yeah, 2 things. One, to your point just now, you see that with the trio of Kayla, Carrie, and McKenna a bit, where that was a hindrance. And then, there's other people in the game, and I know it wasn't maybe as solidified, but Jared and Sandra, that was a benefit. So to Jared's point, is it kind of did play on the blessings and curses. Some people it cursed them, and some people it worked for. But in terms of casting, majority of the time, majority of the seasons that we do, or at least that I've been involved in, we try our very best to mitigate people knowing each other. I think this past season was a bit of an anomaly just because of a few things. One, we had some great applicants that we just couldn't turn away. And then two, we did have this whole element of the blessings and curses and the advantages and disadvantages. And we just thought that with that in play and that such a strong focal point, and then obviously the tokens too, that it would mitigate that a little bit, that it wouldn't make knowing people or not knowing people that big of a deal, because you could potentially, if you knew somebody, have a disadvantage, or if you didn't know somebody, you have an advantage. So, like in one of these episodes, we'll talk about, Jordan got a safety without power, huge advantage, that propelled her to the end game. So, I think I'm pretty sure she was on the chopping block, that vote. So, for her not knowing anybody, she still got through, and she still got a blessing card that helped her do it. So I think it paid off in the end. We got a great cast. I don't think that knowing people swayed the game too much. And then there was, the advantages and disadvantages that played into all that too.
Yeah. Real quick, just to touch on it too, it's, you get, say, 200 applicants, and you get a couple repeats, say 20 or 30 from the year before, or 20 or 30 from the year before that. So you start looking at the games that they've played, and you realize to yourself, how do you really limit it? You are definitely going to get new players. We see games out there that do it. But coming from where we started our game was friends, family, coworkers. We always preached that. And it was like, we had a lot of repeat players. I mean, I played 3 times, and I played against some of the same people in each game. And I actually didn't align with a lot of them each time. It's just kind of the way it goes. So our game's a little different in that way. We don't necessarily conform to what we feel is, one certain way to do things. We like to mix it up. Some seasons are a lot of new players. Some seasons are a lot of veteran players. And other seasons it's new versus veteran type intermingled together. So, anyways, I don't know. It's just a fun experience for us to cast people, and we do little backgrounds on them. We'll Facebook them and find out, like, ooh, they share a mutual friend, but what's to say how close they are? Like maybe they played a game and one was voted out first and one made it to the end. You're not going to know each other that well, so whatever, it is what it is. We like it. It's fun, and that's really what it's all about. Is just coming to have a good time and experience the game and what we put on. So. That's what we're here for, and we hope that everybody that applied this year that didn't make it keeps applying, because we're going to get you on.
Well,
moving on.
Y'all put all the energy on the cast, making sure they have a great experience during the weekend of, and that's where it all matters at the end of the day. Anyway, you do your best in casting. You're not going to please everybody, but you do your best with that. Nathan, I want to talk about this challenge at the Final 7. This was a really fun one. We have Survivor's version of OTEV, as Jason describes it, which is pretty accurate. They're going to get asked questions and have to go find the correct answer in the field. Nathan, what do you think about this challenge?
I love that you outright called it OTEV.
That's right. That was very astute, Jason.
Variously identifiable. I love it. I always love this kind of challenge. It's a really good combo of luck and agility and endurance. It's always a lot of fun.
Well, and I also like how the questions started off relatively easy. So just at first it was, most people are probably going to get it. They just got to find the answer. And then as it went on, it got progressively harder. Jared, you got to the final round of this challenge, but just choked right at the end there. What happened?
Jason picked a question where I wasn't on that tribe.
I didn't realize that.
No, first of all, I was happy to beat Jordan in a running race. I mean, I was like happy about that. But I think it was a blessing in disguise I didn't win that. Not even for the threat factor anymore. For some reason, I went from a total threat to let's go after Sandra. The cast will have to talk to me about that. But it would have been a really difficult decision who to send to the fortune teller, or I like to say Elm Island. And so I'm glad that Jordan, basically had to deal with that.
So Jared, was Jordan your target because she beat you in OTEV and knocked you down in handball?
She really laid the truck stick on that. No, the target was Jason. I guess we'll get into that a little bit. Everyone was saying Matt. Sandra was saying Matt. To me, I didn't want Matt because Matt was giving a lot of information, and he disclosed to me, that Ty was going after me. It was really Kai that disclosed it, but Matt was right there. And Matt and I were starting to develop a relationship at that point too, both kind of like bigger dudes that always don't make it this far just because of that threat level. So I really was growing, emotionally attached to Matt in a sense. And Jason was the only guy I didn't play with the whole game. So my strategy is to never be the one to outright say who we eliminate, especially if I'm in an alliance. I want my alliance person to say the person just to make it feel like it's their play. So when I'm talking to Sandra, she's like, Matt, I'm like, nah, let's think of someone else. She eventually said that the person I wanted was Jason. And so it was a good, collaboration. Yeah. I have a lot of respect for Jason. I thought he had the best performance in a challenge this year with handball.
With the flippers.
Yeah, I mean, he was becoming a problem in that handball. I mean, he was making plays, and I was like, at a certain point, it's like 5'4". I say in a confessional that, thank you, Brett, for not putting on air, that there's no reason for us to be having this close of a game with this tribe right now. We got to go into man defense, and that's when Ty had the pick six. And I thought Jason was incredible. I have a lot of respect for him. I think if we played on the same tribe, we would have had a relationship maybe that he and Jameson had. I think Jason's someone that you could easily work with, and I think if he makes it to the end, he probably wins the game.
I thought Jason was very similar to Sandra in that he's younger than Sandra, but he was kind of the father figure to her mother figure for a while, and so dangerous as all get out. Super smart guy, super likable, knew how to play the game, and so I think Jared and Sandra, realizing that and putting everything together to make that happen. I honestly think it's similar to CBS Survivor in that in the best seasons there seems to be a vote out like 2 or 3 before the finale. That's a big turning point, and I think that was it for Jason.
And I'm sorry to take some time here, but in my head, when first of all it was Kai at the tie vote that was saying that Sandra was probably the next play after Ashley. So I know Jason sometimes is like kicking his shoes, like I should not have told Jared. I should not have told Jared. I was kind of onto it with Kai telling it to me at 9. But it wasn't a strategic play for me. It was really like I kept my word to Sandra. I really like playing with a ride or die. I wish I could say it was strategic, but my first initial thought was it's loyalty. But I really do think strategically it was my best move as well, just because the way Jason is talking during this episode, he keeps talking about how he has his core 4 and he's pulling in Jabbar. So if you get out Sandra, who does that leave? So I'm probably very close to going if we don't make this move for Sandra.
Jared, one thing I'd love to know, because we're watching the episodes just as viewers. I'm not there, Nathan's not there. We're just getting the episodes interpretation of what's going on. Why does it ultimately fall on Sandra? Is it just because most people know she has at least one idol, or do they think she's a threat to win the game?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, credit to Sandra. I mean, this move does not happen, obviously, without her finding the idol. But I think even more impressive than that was who she disclosed it to. She only disclosed it to me and Jordan, and we didn't tell a soul. So I think people did target her because they didn't know that she had an idol. I think if people did know they had an idol, I think, we hear more about splitting votes and, maybe the target's on me at that point. I do not know for the life of me why I was not the next target. I mean, everyone kept saying my name since I was switched on Loa. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's go, Sandra. You'll have to ask someone else on that, maybe Matt.
Jared, I think it's because your social game. I think there was a huge turning point for you from the morning where everybody, well, not everybody, but a large portion of people sensed that you were nervous. And even I think Ty, it was either Ty, yeah, it had to have been Ty. I think Pat was gone by that point. Even brought it up, like, that he was either trying to settle you down or just noticed it. But as the game went on, it was very noticeable how well you integrated yourself with the remaining players while also going after people who were targeting you. So you took out Ty, you took out Veronica. And so I think those voices that were pushing for you to be the next out were gone sequentially, mixed with you were building the relationships with who was left. And then obviously, ended up, in the late game with your number one ally still. So I think it was a testament to not them forgetting or it being sort of random, but how you played it.
That's extremely kind. Thank you, Brett. Because I think there was one confessional I had that I got emotional about that, just because usually, I'm the merge boot just because of, threat level. And, I wish I could take credit for the Veronica and Ty moves. I mean, that was all Kai, Matt, just the Baka Alliance. So, but thank you. I thought the Ashley tribal was key talking about the social, which brings me to Jason. I think the toughest part about hosting is tribal, because you want to make it interesting as possible, but you don't want to expose anyone's game. So, and I feel for Jason when I'm in tribal. It's like, man, I want to give him a nugget. I want to, throw him a bone here, but I can't expose my game. But I thought, talking about Ashley and just having that empathy there was good for TV. And then, it was also true. Like, I thought, maybe to your point, Brad, maybe it made me a little more vulnerable, and maybe people would want to, work with me.
So this leads into the next part that I think was really fun to watch in the episode. So Jordan does go to the fortune teller's room, gets a curse, gets isolation. She can't rejoin the tribe until the tribal council. She'll meet them there, which obviously causes a little bit of a live tribal. Jason, we've been fortunate to have you on this podcast over the last few seasons, talk about your approach to tribal. So we may have touched on this in the past, but let me ask it this way. Do you like these kind of live tribals where people are grouping off more than just the regular tribals, or are they more stressful in a way to try to navigate as a host?
I like them because they're stressful.
Okay.
If it makes any sense. So it just creates another level to the tribal that you're not expecting. It's not just answering some questions. It's not just kind of a little open discussion. It provides for a little bit more of an environment for conversations, breakaways, drama. And, I don't want it to get too out of hand. So I was trying to coerce them, like, don't go too far away. We're going to.
I also thought you just said that because if they go too far, you can't see them anymore. It was so dark.
That too. But, I want them to be within the group. And there were talks about, do we even really allow Jordan to have any sort of time to connect with anyone? That was, we kept her away, but we thought that, the whole thought process behind this whole thing was to create conversation, create opportunities, and create, a push for people to maybe play some advantages or disadvantages or what they have in their pockets to, oh man, well, what are we going to do now? So I appreciate those. I can read the room. I can usually tell what's really going on. And of course, like Jared mentioned, I'm not going to pry for those certain nuggets because I don't want to put anybody on the spot too bad. I'll call some people out for some little things that are very apparently obvious to everyone. Like, oh, these two are talking, or I noticed you two keep leaning into each other and making gestures. And it's the whole group sees it. It's not like it's something that nobody saw. So it's not calling them out. It's just let's talk about what we're seeing here. And so it becomes more of a commentary than a discussion, if anything. And it sort of opens the door and everybody starts to start spilling the beans. So
Yeah, I'll say this, and I said this in a Facebook comment recently, but I haven't seen many other LRGs. My head's kind of stuck in this with editing and all that, but and I know he's gonna hate this, but Jason's an amazing host. I mean, you guys see it in in the episodes. I mean, the guy could fill in for Probst, like no joke. Just like
Out
his,
of here.
no, I'm serious. Like his voice inflection during challenges, the ability to narrate challenges, like it's not easy. I mean, it looks easy because he makes it look easy, but it's in the moment. I mean, like Jared can attest, like it's a very fast paced game. It's bang bang. Like we're doing, basically a challenge and a tribal every 90-ish minutes or sooner. So like it's moving, and so you don't have a lot of time to really think or collect your thoughts. And so I know he hates hearing it, but he does an awesome job, and I think he's the best at it.
I much prefer Jason over Probst, by the way. Like much prefer.
Well, thank you guys.
He is also not just saying that, by the way. Nathan and I have had our critiques with Probst, especially in recent memory. So he is not just saying that.
I don't know what to say. Thank you, Brett. You're right. I hate hearing it. I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I just want to put something out there for everyone and give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts, share the game with each other, and bring that to the forefront. If I can, if one day one of my tribals is what really excels somebody to say, you know what, this is my pitch for the real game. I'm going to do this. Like, I don't know, whatever. You just hang your hat on it. But I hope to see somebody from one of our games make the real deal one of these days, and we'll see where it goes. But thank you all. I guess I don't know. I'm going to keep doing it because I keep hearing things like this. But the day that I get tired of it, or the day that it just becomes more work than it is fun, I'll step aside, maybe play a few times and get back into the spirit of things. But for now, I'm here to stay, and I really enjoy it. And that kind of lifts me up. And I know I say I hate it, but I do appreciate it. It means a lot. So thank you.
Sorry, my mic was screwing up. Yep. So, and then Nathan, I have to imagine that maybe I'm wrong on this. Jared was there, but I have to imagine if Jordan doesn't have to come in and start talking strategy at Tribal, this probably doesn't become as chaotic as it is. Do you agree, Nathan?
Oh, not at all. Oh, not at all. Speaking of her disadvantage here, I know this is niche, but since we have two production members and here, I think this is the time to ask this. I'm blown away every time by these cards. They have their own names with them. They have their own graphics. Who even made these graphics? Where did you find this?
I would also
What's
like
the
to
story
know. This is a
behind
good
this?
question.
Yeah, so I take care of all the logos and the graphics, and I made the cards. So we wanted things as authentic as possible in terms of tarot cards. So the tarot cards in terms of the Fool or the Hanged Man, that sort of stuff. Those are, taken from true tarot card, but obviously we changed colors and branding on them. And the background of the cards I made up. But in terms of the cards themselves, I'd love to give a shout out to the website. I cannot think of it now, but there's a website that makes basically board game material or assets, and I found them. I tried them out, and they were killer. I mean, we sent them a couple at first, so we didn't get them all printed just to see, and got them back, and we're super impressed. And actually, what was hilarious about it was they had a tarot card offering. That was one of the things that was on their website. So I was like, oh dang, all right, why not? So it ended up working out. I actually have an idea now that I'm done with editing things to see if we can get interest from the cast, or I guess whoever else would be interested in it, of doing some custom tarot card decks. So you would get all the cards that were at the fortune teller cabin, and then there would be a little or there would be a card for each contestant and a little bio and a bit about their game on it. So just a little keepsake that commemorates it and the theme and everything.
Oh, that'd be super cool, like a memorabilia kind of thing. That'd be really cool. So we're gonna get to the vote, and Jared, somehow all the stars align, and everybody is gonna put a vote on Sandra. You're also gonna do that, knowing she has an idol, and Jason is gonna go here. And Jared, so walk me through what was the process of looping in people like Matt and Jabbar and get everybody on board with this plan? Did that go? Did anybody have questions, or did they bring it up to you like, "Hey, let's do Sandra this round"?
No, I mean, my hunch going into that once Ashley left was it was going to be Sandra based on what Kai told me in 9, and then Jason, and that was just amazing. I mean, Brett, you said it on in our group chat that this was one of the best episodes from start to finish of seeing just my story arc and then Jason and Sandra. And sure enough, we get the video of Jason being like, "Jared, come over," and I'm like, man, that's a blessing right there. So really, everyone did the bidding to have Sandra go home. Before Tribal, I just gotta give a quick shout out to the B-roll of that moon, of that orange moon. If there's one thing I've watched the most of this whole season, it's the handball highlights because I love sports. I love that challenge. I can't tell you how much I love that challenge. And then B, it was my confessional, guilty. I like hearing myself talk. And just the gravity of that confessional, what's about to happen. And then you get the orange sun, and then you get the pitch black, 3 deep beats, boom, boom, boom. And that's just like, that's all Brett. I mean, that's just really phenomenal, work on the B-roll there. So that's for you, Nathan. But yeah, going into the vote, that was the most nervous I was ever for a tribal. I've been blessed to play this game. Yeah, I've been blessed to play this game 5 or 6 times by that point, and I was never as more nervous for a tribal as that one. I think Jason, you mentioned, there's some movement going on, and I just pretend like, yeah, I'm shaking. I've been sitting for like 2 hours or whatnot. Like, no, I was like nervous, man, about that, and because I thought everyone was gonna know I was gonna spill the beans. So then when Jordan starts talking to everybody, I'm like, that's music to my ears, because if anyone, gives me some pushback after tribal, I could just say, no, Jordan spilled it. It wasn't me. I'm good. So, and then the rest is history with the vote.
The only other thing that I have for this episode was it killed me, and that it was, and I love that it was left in the episode, was Jabbar writing Shayna, and then y'all just play it off. He's talking out loud the whole time as if he's completely right, and nobody in production corrects him, which I thought was hilarious. I'm very glad you let me do that, Brad.
I had to leave that in there. Sorry, I had to leave that in there where he's struggling at the booth to figure out what the name is, and I mean, it just. No offense, Jabbar, but it was so Jabbar the whole season where he was in scramble mode. Like, I would say Jabbar kind of had like this, also on the flip side, this quiet confidence about him where like he was confident in himself, in his abilities to navigate the game. I think he admits that, he's maybe not the best in challenges, but aside from that, he had a confidence about himself. He just wasn't confident in anybody else. His tribe got eliminated one by one, and he ends up being the last Loa, in the game. But it was one of those moments where it was like, yeah, you got to kind of, I guess it's not breaking the fourth wall, but in a way, you're kind of watching the poor guy scramble to figure out her name.
I really appreciated it, Brett, because I walked back to go, tally the votes, and I get back there and production is basically in tears, and I'm like, what is going on? They're like, wait till you read one of the names in here and wait till you watch the footage for it. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I'm really glad you put it in there, because I would have never been able to put it all into context, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and here comes this episode, and I'm like, oh, it all makes sense now. And I can't sit there and laugh and get down with what's going on and appreciate it, because I'm so in the moment that I'm disconnected from every little avenue of the game. And you guys on production that get to go and see these really stellar moments, whether they're dramatic or funny or just, filled with emotion. And I don't get all of it all the time. So it was really great to sort of be part of walking in on that and say, well, what just happened? You're going to read this name, and Jabbar really made. And so for me, that was great. And I think you touched on something else with Jabbar too. And that was that the previous season, we were originally cast him, and he fell ill on the way to the game. And he was trying every ounce of his body to get to us, to the point where he was actually going to ride with someone else. And they were going to, rendezvous somewhere, I think in Pennsylvania, to continue the trip up. And I remember the phone call. We were eating breakfast, Friday morning, and he's just like, I can't. I'll keep coming, but I'm really getting sick. And I'm like, no, please don't. Like, I'm really sorry you made it this far. Like, I wish I had known more. And I really, I'm proud of you for trying, but I don't want you to risk getting anybody else sick. I don't want you to, So he has a really big story. And then he comes into the game this year, and I'm sure his nerves are through the roof just because he was so close last time. Now he gets there this year, and there's just a whole lot going on with him emotionally. And you can see it kind of unfold, and it's just great to watch this game, see how far he made it. Had some really big moments in the game, so I'm happy for him. And he was just an awesome person to have, so I'm so glad that it worked out this year, and then it worked out the way that it did. So, I don't know, my 2 cents on that.
No, I 100% agree. To be, almost on one season, coming to this season and make it as far as he did, especially given the hand he was dealt, being on the losing tribe in the grand scheme of things, it was really impressive. And being the last one standing overall. So that was impressive. And yep, Jason's going to leave here with 1 sole vote from Sandra. Probably not the most fun way to go out. It hasn't happened to me, and hopefully it never does, but can't imagine going home with just 1 sole vote is the best feeling, but take it as a compliment nonetheless. He was a threat, like you were talking about, Jared. He was playing a good game, so hats off to Jason and hitting the game he played. Let's see. Was there anything else anybody wanted to cover from episode 11 before we jump?
Yeah, one last thing on that tribal, and again, this goes back to the testament about our cast and just how great they were. The jury reactions for these idol plays were phenomenal. I mean, I think, Veronica, Alejandro, Ty, just you can really feel how much, even though they were voted out, how much everybody was still so engaged with what was going on and the plays, and it progresses, even into next episode. So kudos to them. It's tough to get voted out, especially when you're really in it, right? And a lot of blindsides this season, and so to kind of put that aside and still, I don't know, have I wouldn't say rooting interest, but still just be engaged, in the game. Just speaks to how much they love it and how good of a cast it was.
And I just have 2 real quick hitters on that, as I just thought of myself. The first was it was fun watching season 45 of Survivor and seeing Dee, do something similar with Mama Jane. She kind of told, her, hey, play your idol. And I kind of saw parallels there just between me and Sandra. So that was cool watching the real show on that. And then, the second thing was, I thought what made this tribal so great was that it was at night. And I give a lot of credit to production for, again, just putting together, the set and the moment. You really, to me as a player, I really felt the gravity of the moment. I think that's what made the reaction so great, just with the fire, it being at night. So just a testament again to production. Just it truly feels, like the real thing out there.
Yeah, Letchworth Valley Campground, where we hold it, like really set our game up for that atmosphere, like I was talking about, where, I mean, there's the amphitheater, whatever you want to call it, for the tribal, which looks amazing, and there's a huge fire pit, and we've got the big grassy area where challenges are, and I could go on and on, but it really helped us deliver that atmospheric level. And then even we kind of lucked into the voting booth, if you want to call it that, where that was like this kind of not being used woodshed that was just off to the side. And we weren't even fully committed to using that as where we were going to vote until like the day before. It just kind of worked out, and I just it again, the campground was huge for that.
I don't, and I completely agree with what you say, Jared. The production team did a phenomenal job. It's with the nighttime travels, because those are super difficult. So props to the Angelica team. Nathan, I won't speak for Jason and Brett, but I know you and I have talked about this. As two guys who have been on production, filming night travels before, I don't know if I ever felt a greater disconnect between production and the players, because the players thought those were the coolest thing ever. They wanted to do every travel at night if they could, and I did not. I did not want to film any nighttime travels. Not fun, Nathan.
No, if you have competent lighting equipment, it really, really changes things. But if you don't, you have female production members standing on shoulders holding up crappy cell phone flashlights. You have all this random stuff, and you can't hear anything. So yeah, production-wise, definitely prefer the daytime.
But that's just us, though. Of course, you know, they are cool to be a part of as a player. But as production, it's not as it's very difficult. So absolutely props to Angelica for the lighting and being able to see everything there. But I'm very excited to get to episode 12, because we have, if there's anything that can beat Alejandro's clickbait thumbnail, we have the best thumbnail of the season. We might. Jared, I bet this is your favorite thumbnail of the season.
Oh, God. Brett, you shared this picture?
I'm sorry, man. I had to.
No, okay.
This is art.
This is ours, man.
There's some confessionals I remember giving. I didn't remember this one. So when I'm watching this, like, I got razzed. As Brett likes to say, you know, he tries to razz some players up, and I got absolutely razzed. And yeah, it was cool. Also, another thing about that title, it took me a day to figure out why the title was called Sweet Dreams. And then I'm like, oh, duh, the music was Sweet Dreams. So
Yeah. That so for the titles, you know, as you can guess or hear, you know, at the very end of Tribals, you know, I run the audio back of where the title came from. That one I didn't. That was maybe the only one that I didn't use an actual you know, audible clip from somebody, and yet it was just kind of, I felt like that Sweet Dreams segment fit so well with Kai, where she was in the game. She happens to get voted out, you know, right there afterwards. It was too good not to use it as the title. But yeah, to Jared's point, I hope nobody gets offended by some of the editing in terms of, like, you know, some of it pokes fun at people, but it's done I hope in a way where it's light and more of a laughing with you than at you approach. Because you know, we're human. Like, people are going to say funny stuff. We're going to screw up. We're going to forget names, like all that stuff. So, yeah, it's never about, like, you know, trying to dig in at somebody.
no.
I mean, Brett, you're the guy who got disqualified from the challenge for wearing cleats. I mean, if you can't laugh at yourself, no one can.
Yeah, I put that in for me too. The whole DQ banner, whatever that was. Yeah.
Nathan, I don't even remember what you said, but I remember when they released, like, on this thumbnail and the Survivor Angelica Facebook page, and I don't even remember. Do you remember what you commented? It cracked me up, whatever you said.
Oh, and it belongs in a museum, because it does.
Yes, it does belong in a museum. It's very, very good, and I love Jared. In the episode, you walk up and the first thing you say is, "Do a shirtless confessional." That's what the people want. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad you could roll with it.
Oh, thanks. That was fun.
Let's see. Well, we're going to get straight into a next challenge. Not too long after that, it's a memory match card game. You know, classic Survivor challenge there. Fairly straightforward. And Jared, you're going to win it, actually. Did you have a strategy for that particular challenge?
Yeah, not lose. You know,
Good strategy.
In my previous confessional, the one before the Big Sun, I say, you know, look, we got Sandra's Idol, we got the immunity challenges, I'm due. And if you believe in do, which I do, it worked out. And I played Memory as a kid. I loved that challenge. And, coming into it, right? I mean, most nervous I've ever been at a tribal. We get right into the challenge. So I'm just on edge. Like, I'm like, there's no way I'm not leaving without that necklace. And I'll say one other thing. Jabbar had a very interesting comment during, before his Shayna moment, where it's like he feels he's on his rise. He's on his rise, and people are at their lull. And I think after the Sandra vote and given the long day, I think a lot of people were tired. I was tired. We were emotionally gassed, physically gassed, and I think it was very good on production to put Memory at that point, given where people's heads were. And I thought the Memory challenge went by very quickly. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jason.
No, I was just agreeing. I'm saying it was all part of the plan. Like, we think about those things and where we want to implement certain challenges for those reasons. So hearing that from you just kind of confirms that it played out the way we wanted it to. So
100%. Yes, well done.
If I could take a quick minute, like I know that we're the ones on the podcast and everything, but we have a crew of about 5 or 6, depending on the year, each and every year. And the creativity and just the ability to think through things like that, as minor as it may seem, is amazing. And so, Chris Zerbel is kind of our project manager, if you will, and kind of operational brains to things. His wife, Elisa, is sort of in that role as well, in the planning stages of things. She also does the Ponderosa. So when you get voted out, she's the one, managing, all of that. And that's huge amount of legwork. And then Val Crandall, she's kind of hand in hand with Chris Zerbel in the planning, and we all have a part in it, but they really take that on as their own. And then Jason Crandall is our challenge guy, and he's second to none. I mean, he builds some awesome stuff, like the dial puzzle that you see that you got to pull the lever out of. He built that. He's built numerous other things. He has plans for this year to go even bigger and better. And then we have some helpers too. So, the Klein brothers, who you guys know, they're Kurt is part of the crew this year. And so, it's just it's a whole group effort. There's no editing, there's no episodes, if everybody isn't doing their part. And we just have an awesome group. I mean, everybody gets along. Like, there's the ability for ideas to flow. And so, the hope is that comes out, in the end product. And I think it really did this year.
And I appreciate you saying that, Brett, because even though I may not know all the names, or Nathan of all the people, I know they're there. And, this is not a game you can put on with 1 or 2 people. It takes an army. So I appreciate you taking that time to thank everybody. I really do, because there's a lot of people who maybe aren't on this podcast or don't step foot in a single episode, but they're out there working their tail off. So that was good you took that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this. So I was able to share in the episode editing duties for 2021, which was the last season I was in, and had some personal things last year, so wasn't able to edit last year. So I actually did the filming and everything for last year, but didn't do the editing. And Kurt really stepped up on like no notice and put that season out there. And quite honestly, we wouldn't have been able to put that season even out there if it wasn't for Kurt. So yeah, I mean, we all have each other's backs. It's a huge group effort. So kudos to everybody.
Jared, you also get to make a choice. You get to take 2 people on the reward. You pick Matt and Jordan, but then you get to pick one person to go to the fortune teller's booth, and you pick Kai. Why Kai?
So yeah, I mean, another reason, just mentally, I wanted to win. I mean, this was a huge prize to have this much power at 6. And I really wasn't thinking about who to send. I was just thinking about memory, trying to form my patterns, kind of like how Stephen Fishbach did it. You clump certain, items together to help you memorize, just like a phone number, right? Jordan to me was easy to take because she had just gone through that emotional ordeal. And I wanted to be the first one to talk to her about just how everything went down, and also, the strategy. Because at that reward challenge, I kind of wish we saw a little more of it, but just that was for me a strategy session. It wasn't about eating hot dogs, which obviously I did. I love the mayo. I do like mayonnaise. I know I was kind of razzing a little bit on that, but I do like mayonnaise. I just never had it with a hot dog before. And then the second person was tough because I have a relationship with Jabbar and Kai and Matt from Baca. But again, I thought Matt I just felt closer to him, and I felt it was easier to communicate, with him on things. Just a little more of trust, especially with this key strategy session that was going to be at the hot dog session. And I took Kai because I did want to play it off like I was doing her a favor by sending her to Elm because I knew she had 2 blessings, but I knew it was better for Kai to go than Jabbar because I was leaning more toward the Baka strong at the time of that. I was thinking at 6 we were going to take out Jabbar, and I think she had fewer blessings, but it was close. I think it was the right decision because Jabbar had more blessings. I think Jabbar had a better chance of getting something good at that moment if he had gone. So, and one other thing on this. Sorry, I know I'm a little long-winded.
No, you're good.
There's a lot going on, but Sandra winked at me when I did that, and I was talking about the wing spread. I knew that we were on the same page. Like she was not going to feel any type of malfeasance about me not taking her to the reward. So that was huge that Sandra knew exactly what I was doing.
That was the question I had, standing there real time, kind of wondering who you're going to take, what your decision is going to be, kind of seeing how the game is unfolding, and then watching the storyline here. So I was just going to ask you that, and you answered that. So I was wondering what the Sandra role was. And so hearing that she winked and kind of gave her approval. So that's good to know.
I mean, pivotal that she confided in me about her second idol, because to me in my head, it's, that's the play, right? It's going to be pretty easy to rile up the troops to get us to vote for her again, given, she just made the play of the season. And, cardinal sin, in my opinion, in Survivors, don't send your alliance people, all to the reward so the other, people could, gather up together. Jabbar and Sandra being the only 2, at camp, but thought that was as safe as it gets. You get 2 people that don't really, align well, and one person doesn't even know the other person's name. So I thought that was sorry, Jabbar. Yeah. No,
Jared, did you so how that fortune teller trip went, because it was the last one of the season, and for us in production knew that we allowed you to go play your final token that you earned for that challenge at the Voodoo Doll booth. I couldn't recall, and it was dark. Was that a curse that you put on Kai?
I did.
Okay, so you really played it off then.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if she, just watching the episode, I don't think she looked at my decision as a blessing, that I was doing her a favor. I think it was, she didn't. I don't know if she looked at it that way, but yeah, I put the hex on Kai. I think I made it 2-2 at that point, just so she wouldn't get anything, too good at that point. So,
well, it worked.
Worked out.
I have a question for Jason and Brett, but first I have a question for you, Nathan. Nathan, this is tough. I mean, Kai gets the very last trip of the season, and she loses her vote at Final 6. I mean, Nathan, was this the most lethal curse we saw all season? Just straight up losing your vote?
It's hard to think of anything worse than it, off the top of my head. Can you think of anything?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is something worse, but didn't even occur in the season. You know, my mind could wander of horrible things to happen, but they didn't happen in the season. So I'd say it's worse, and I'd say the only thing worse was the timing of it. At Final Six, I mean, she ultimately, the votes do end up on Sandra, so it's not like she was just screwed from the get-go, but very unfortunate place to lose. I mean, in the new era Survivor, people lose their votes all the time, but normally it's at the start of the game, not the end of the game.
I mean, the name of this card is literally the devil, so I think that might be a hint to us here.
That's true. Maybe that was intentional. It was supposed to be really bad. It is the devil. That's true. But I felt for Kai. I could tell she was very frustrated and emotional about it, but I applaud her for at least not giving up and still doing the strategy session. Jason and Brett, in y'all's opinion, after seeing the whole season play out, all of the blessings and curses and how they played out, and you know who used them in what way, what were y'all's favorites from a production standpoint of which either blessing or curse was your favorite to watch play out?
Well, I think for just the comedic value was the flip-flops. Only because we sit around a table months and months and months ahead of this and talk about what can we do that's just like a really odd curse to do, and what's funny or what's silly or what's debilitating or what, and just we kept coming back to these flip-flops, like, yeah, we're going to do flip-flops, and lo and behold, it goes to Jason, and it comes down to an athletic game, which is like it played out like exactly where if we wanted it to play out, that's where we wanted it to play out. And nonetheless, he ends up, doing great with them anyways. And they were small. They were probably really tight on his feet. I know there was some footage of it, but I can't imagine being in those. Like, it just had to hurt. So for me, I just thought that was hilarious. I'll let Brett answer, and then, we can talk about some more.
Yeah, on the luck of the draw, I think you guys even mentioned it in an earlier podcast that like in the beginning, it just was like one blessing after another. And so if people don't know, Chris Zerbel was the fortune teller. And so him and I, after somebody would leave the cabin, him and I would be like, what the heck's going on? Like nobody's. So then it starts to flip on its head though and kind of go the other direction. And so toward the end of the game, you're getting a lot of curses. But yeah, the timing of them completely random. I mean, we weren't stacking the deck. We weren't putting certain ones in, certain ones out. There was we did have like, okay, we only want like 3 of these, 2 of those, idols were more rare. But like from trip to trip, we were not changing the deck up based on how the game was going or anything. So it was strictly random. In terms of my favorite, I would say Veronica was definitely up there. I kick myself because so she walks in the best thing about the beginning, like a couple people, went twice, but the best part about the beginning was it's brand new for everybody. And I think Veronica was early enough where I think she might have even went Friday night. I can't quite remember, but it was early enough to where there was a lot of mystique around it. Not too many people had gone. So, people weren't telling each other really. And so she walked in and she was legitimately spooked. And so there's a couple of jump scare moments where, it's pretty funny to watch. But the part I kicked myself about is there was a moment on camera where we had a fog machine in there. And, we rolled the fog machine before they went in, and then we cut it so that we just didn't get in the way of things. And for whatever reason, it did this random puff while she was sitting there, and man, she jumped a mile. It was hilarious. And I was just one of those things where I forgot about it and I forgot to put it in. So maybe we'll circle back and, do a social media clip of it or something. But I think that one stands out. I think in terms of impact on the game, I would say it wasn't maybe played correctly, meaning he wasn't going to get voted out with it or by not playing it. But Jabbar's idol, I think, really flipped the game on its head because it got Pat out. And I really think that Pat would have went far. He was likable. He had, an edge to him where like he wasn't going to take any BS. He had Jared and a couple other people in his corner, the Baseball Alliance. So
he was a challenge beast.
Yeah. So I think that was like, wow, what could have been. So that one kind of stands out, and it was the first idol. And then a quick production note on that idol. So if you notice, we use Tool, the band Tool, is a lot of our music for the season. And as Jabbar is, and this is a testament to Chris Zerbel again, he came up with the song that we used, Fear Inoculum, I think it's called. And as Jabbar is literally receiving the idol, and we didn't time this, like there's no way we could time it. The lyric is "Bless this immunity." It was just like, it was so fitting and so awesome. So yeah, it was things like that, one after another, where it just kind of all kept coming together, all fitting in like a puzzle, and made it what it was.
Yeah, I was going to go back to that as far as a game-changing moment. That would have been one of them that I think could have been, if that wasn't in the game, there would have been a lot of different things that would have happened from that moment on. So it was truly impactful on that. So there was an impactful one. There was a comedic one. And then he just had silly stuff like Kai having to sleep outside. And we did that to like more of a positive thing than anything. It was kind of fun to watch her, snuggle herself in, talk about all the bugs that were, she counted 5 and only saw 3, and just a mosquito hanging around her and wondering if there's bears at night. Just like, it turned into a fun moment where it wasn't as bad as, there's games where people are staying outside. We have cabins that whatever, there's nothing in them, but you're still provided some shelter. So, people may look at that and say, well, whatever, she's outside. So what? That's, but, for our game, it's kind of a big deal. And I think it was where we are during the time of year that it is, with ticks and mosquitoes and creepy crawlies and spiders and everything else. Like, it is not enjoyable at all. So I felt bad for that. And then to turn around and get, the no ability to vote, losing her vote, just, it was like, I don't know, that really, it was a double hitter.
Jared, if you were unfortunate enough to get the flippers for your favorite challenge, handball, how upset would you be?
Oh my God, I can't believe you asked that. I think about that all the time. So we're a size 9. Jason says he's either 11 or 12. I don't want to shortchange Jason, so let's say he's a 12. I'm a 13. So that's freaking brutal, and especially knowing where I was on the tribe, we had to win those immunities, or else I'm probably going home. So I would have been, I would have had to been the flu game. Would have had to, bring out some type of performance, something.
Yeah, kudos on Jason for going along with that, even though they were too small. I think the thought there was we didn't know who was going to get them. In hindsight, we probably should have just gotten a couple different sizes and been safe about it. I think cost was sort of an issue, but yeah, no, kudos on him. He played it off great. And then the footage that we got of him strutting around, and it made it so much better. And then again, another timing thing that there's no way we could have made this happen. He gets it for handball, right? It's maybe the worst game or worst challenge out of any of them to get the flippers for. And so again, just worked out.
Jared, this is another really big tribal, obviously, and deja vu. Everyone wants to put the votes on Sandra again, and this makes sense in theory. People don't know she has 2 idols. We flushed one out. Let's try to get her out now. She shouldn't have anything. How did the strategy go this time? Did you really have to? Did people come to you saying they want Sandra gone, or did you have to kind of nudge people in that direction, knowing she would play her idol?
No, this is where, give credit to Sandra confiding in me and finding the idol. Absolutely, this doesn't happen without her, and we probably have to pull some people in order to keep the me, Jordan, Sandra alliance going. But in terms of orchestration, I give myself credit for this. If not to toot my own horn, but it's just I knew what I was doing at the reward. We're practicing for Final 5 immunity, and first of all, Matt's horrible at it. You know, I kind of wish we saw a little of that. He was, you know, god awful at it. And while he's, you know, focusing, looking in his eyes, you know, at the thing, and we're talking about like, yeah, it has to be Sandra, right? She just did that, you know. He's saying, yeah, there's no way she has two idols, no way. And Jordan and I are like, yeah, no, it has to be her. And then as he's doing that, I'm giving Jordan the wink, like, and she's waking right back. So I mean, we really, you know, played Matt there like a fiddle, and I also think Matt was the right person too, because you know, Matt, from just watching the episodes, seemed like the person that was really mobilizing the vote, you know, at a lot of times. And that to me was one of the more surprising things looking back as a player, because during the Veronica votes and the Alejandra votes, I'm just kind of on the periphery, like as long as it's not me. But Matt was really instrumental talking to Veronica there. He and Kai, in my book, seemed to be running things. And, you know, again, once we told Matt the plan, he started talking to Kai. I happened to be part of that conversation, and you know, it just really worked out.
Nathan, this voting for somebody, them playing the idol, sending home someone with their vote. Then the exact same thing happened the very next round. This is Survivor fan fiction. Like, this is the kind of stuff a fan only hopes would happen. Like heroes versus villains, best season quality stuff, right? And yet it's happening right here and now. And this was riveting to watch.
Oh, absolutely. I was totally floored. Just everything coming together here. Not only do we have this insane sequence of events, but we also have a really, really compelling group of people to go along with it.
Absolutely. And speaking of, one of my favorite confessionals in either of these two episodes we're talking about was before the tribal. Jordan and Sandra do like a duo confessional of them together. And I couldn't even remember what they tell you, but I remember thinking that moment, because I was taking notes for this podcast, was, wow, between these two people right here who are closely aligned, they have 2 or 3 individual immunity wits, a safety without power, and 2 idols, which is a wildly impressive statistic. So it's just power players, man.
Yeah, you know, in terms of production, I had a choice to make in terms of, do you share people's plans, right? Jared is very vocal about, you know, what he's trying to do, vocal about Sandra has an idol. And so, you know, some might say, or maybe how other people would edit is, all right, we want the idol plays to be a surprise to the audience at Tribal. And one, I just thought it took too much away from the back end strategy. And I looked at it as an opportunity to kind of bring people in on the move. And so like you almost kind of know it's coming, but the surprise or the shock and awe is, one, the rest of everybody else's reaction, but then 2, who goes out. So I tried to really limit, in terms of a surprise, I tried to make the surprise be who was chosen to go out. It's a little harder for the Jason vote. The Kai vote, I don't think anybody really saw that coming, and the jury certainly didn't. So yeah, it's just those little things where it's like, all right, you know, there's too much here, there's too much content, too much substance here, not to bring people in on what the thought process was.
Well, the same thing is going to happen. Jordan is first going to play her safety without power. Good for her. I believe it was the last time she could play it, so save herself. And then Kai can't vote. Everyone else votes for Sandra. Sandra plays her second idol and sends home Kai. And Jason, one thing that I appreciate from Kai was, because she had a really rough go those last few hours in the game. She slept outside. Talked about it at Tribal, you know, how it wasn't as bad as she thought, but obviously that anxiety was building up before it happened, not knowing what to expect. Lost her vote and left with only 1 vote. But what I thought was impressive was how she left the game smiling and didn't take it personally. You know, she's like, good job, guys. I had a great time. So I thought that showed a lot of class on her part.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I think some of her confessionals kind of lead up to just even more of the drama to her story, was that she in her head was building herself up, that she thought she had a really good shot, and you know, she was ready to make a really, you know, big push to make it to the finals and be, you know, there at the end. And so in her mind, she had suffered enough to be able to get to this point, and she's thinking, all right, just get through these next couple of tribals and I'm there. Like I could win this whole thing. And just to sit there and be totally deflated by, an idol and a few other, underlying circumstances with that tribal is such defeat. And for her to stand up with just a bow, basically like, well done. I respect the game. I respect everybody here. I had a great time. I appreciate that. So it had to be tough. I can't imagine. That just was a lot to go through those last few hours and have everything happen the way that it did. So kudos to her for doing that.
I want to say something on Kai just real quick. One anecdote, was, she was sleeping outside, as we know, and production at one point, says, hey, it's okay if you want to sleep, inside the cabin. And I was pretty demonstrative. I was like, not that demonstrative. I was like, hey, she's already sleeping. This is like a badge of honor, and to production's credit, it's like, it's not really your call, Jared. Like, okay. But so they woke her up, and, Kai was like, I'm still going to sleep, outside. I'm still going to. And not only that, she was so nice to production, even though they woke her up. If you guys had woken me up in that moment, I would have been so pissed off. I tell you, the hardest to fall asleep out here. But I think that's just the type of person Kai is. I mean, she is just such a sweet, genuine person, but she's also a silent assassin. And if we played Angelica 100 times, without a doubt, Kai is winning 10 of them. She's winning the most. Pat would have backed me up on this too. We talked about it, in our chat. She's just that good. She's a 2-time winner in other games, and I thought she also had one of the Oscar moments of the year when talking to Ty, during his eventual vote out. So Kai is just a tremendous player and a tremendous person.
So we get to the final 5 round, and Nathan, this reminded me a little bit of the last Angelica season, when it was the final 5, and as soon as Andrew didn't win immunity, he went home. And not that this was necessarily as clear cut as that. Like in that one, it was like a clear 3 versus 2 divide. I wouldn't say it was quite that clear cut in this one, but it seemingly that Jabbar, his number was punched at this point.
Yes. Jabbar actually ended strong too with his confessionals, as mentioned earlier. At the very, very beginning of episode 11, he has 2 of my lines of the season. He says, "Who needs to be in a power position when everyone loves you?" Which I love that. And the one I even like more, "It's everyone against me, and that's the way I like it."
It's that
Jabbar delivering again with the one-liners, yeah.
He's got the one-liners. It's that quiet confidence we talked about. He's, I don't think he wanted to be in the position he was for a lot of the game. Just, his back was kind of against the wall. He had to turn on his original tri-mates at certain points, but that was the hand he was dealt, and he didn't quit. But I have to ask, Jason, was this Final 5 challenge with the little bow and the ball, was that a new challenge for Angelica, or has this been used before?
No, that was new.
Okay, I didn't recognize that.
One of my creations. I try to dabble in only a couple challenges in as far as creating something or building onto something. So a few of the ones that you've seen, I've built, and we've actually just kind of added on to them and accessorized them to create different challenges from them. But these ones were a new one that I've always wanted to do, and sourced materials for it and came up with a plan with where we wanted to put it.
Jared, you mentioned that we didn't see in the episode, but like when y'all were practicing the challenge, Matt was really bad. But then he goes on to win. Like, do you think like he just got the hang of it after a while? Did him doing so bad to start kind of make you eliminate him in your mind? What do you think happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. I was very surprised that Matt did as well as he did. I was kind of like, I'm going to win. I have that silent confidence, maybe now at this point, cockiness a little bit. But I was very surprised, and you give him a lot of credit. I think a couple things here. First of all, I want a rematch on him because, I got a little, I'm not great at that challenge. It was a little shaky there, but my my right foot was down. I think the left foot had to be. I had a taped ankle a little bit, but that didn't lose the challenge. What really, was the factor was Matt was determined. Matt knew his back was against the wall, and if he loses that challenge, he's absolutely going home. And I give Matt a ton of credit for having the focus that I had at 6. It felt like he had the focus at 5 to win that challenge, where I kind of, had the gas pedal a little off, and was riding a little bit of my laurels, I felt. And you give him a lot of credit on that. I also thought from a challenge standpoint, I thought Cernus was absolutely great with the commentary. One of the things I love from the real show is some of that commentary because, as a sports guy, I love the commentary, all that. And I really thought Jason was really great, just, calling Sandra Boston and commenting on the arms battle. And it really adds to the show, in my opinion. And when my parents are talking about, Jason as a host, sorry, Jason, I know you don't like this, but I got to lean into it. I think what makes Jason separate himself from the others is just his presence and his charisma. And you really saw that in effect with this challenge, but does it in a way where it's like not all about me. He has the charisma, but he's still shining the limelight on us players that are in the thick of the challenge. So I thought that was good.
Think about what that not that the challenge was a bad challenge, but in terms of watching it in an episode, like think about what that would have been without the commentary, right? Like the commentary really drove it. The other thing about that challenge is Jared, your ability to save that or almost save that at the end. I mean, you were fishing that thing for like what seemed like 30 seconds, so much so that you took the attention off of what was supposed to be Sandra's camera person. I think that was actually me. And like all eyes were on you, and we didn't even get. It was probably our only goof of the season in terms of not capturing something. We didn't even get Sandra because we were so laser focused on what a great job you were doing to save it.
Yeah, I had a lot on my mind at that moment, trying to save it, and then the transition, which foot. And I'm sorry, I don't blame the camera on that. I blame myself for not lasting longer. The camera should not have been the goof. That was my goof. So. That was fun, though.
That's interesting, Jared. You mentioned a second ago that Matt was going to go home here if he didn't win immunity. I might have missed that in the episode, and it was sad, but that's very interesting. Why Matt the target there?
No,
ideally?
I wish I could say it was all strategy. In my head, I'm thinking that, like, I was the biggest threat out there. As long as I make it to the final, I got a shot, and I'm willing to go up against anybody when it comes to a speech and just honoring my game. And all these people had great games. Every single person, you could have made an argument for every single one. So to me, it was kind of cutting hairs, who had, the best game. But I really felt an attachment to Jabbar. I really did. Everyone talks about the parking lot, alliances, which drive me absolutely crazy. It's like you talk for 20 minutes, you're going to base your whole game off of that. But there was something about that parking lot moment with Jabbar, and we bonded a lot. I probably spoke to Jabbar the most in the game. We were, he taught me about, if someone says something crazy and the reaction is, girl, please, and period. He taught me all that. I did not know what the definition of girl meant. So I had so much fun with Jabbar, and I wanted to, reciprocate that as far as possible. But, once Matt won immunity, it had to be him because I wasn't going to turn on Jordan and Sandra.
Jason, this is a very interesting outcome because I completely understand where Jared's coming from and Jordan with the loyalty coming in. But so, maybe that's a factor in the game. You form these real bonds that you don't want to cut. But in a lot of people's minds, there's no idols left. And the likelihood of Sandra having 3 idols is very, very low. So were you surprised on a production level that Sandra wasn't toast here?
Yeah. It kind of shocked me when we get to tribal and things go the way that they do. I guess I really didn't, maybe I was just too invested in everything else going on to read a little deeper into the situation. I think that you can kind of see some of the the hints and some of the signals that are there. But for me, I'm so disconnected from all the little things happening behind the scenes that I couldn't have put that together. So I'm sitting there, and in my head, I'm already automatically thinking that this is all right. We've had two rounds in a row where it's been everybody going after Sandra. So what's going to change now, and why is it going to change? And then after seeing this, then I started thinking to myself, like, well, maybe this was all part of the plan to take attention off of it. I start to really spiral out of control and go down a rabbit hole of, different scenarios. Like maybe this was all part of the plan. Let's just keep all the votes for her, and she'll play her idol, and then it'll make it, she'll be the deciding factor on this. It's all part of her story here. So I really love what Brett did with all the footage, with all the confessionals, and just how the story plays out for everybody in this game. It really does lead you down a certain way, and then all of a sudden, bam, you're blasted with something else. So,
yeah, I think if I think back about that tribal and just in the game in general, I've thought about that too. Like, man, why didn't Sandra go out sooner? And obviously the idol plays, but aside from that, and I think it really just came. And you correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, but I think it came down to just a numbers game. I think if you're Matt and Jabbar at that point, you're 3-2. You know that Jordan isn't voting Sandra. Maybe at that point, I don't know how much people knew about how close Jared was with Sandra, but like, what do you do, right? If you're Matt, so you kind of, maybe Matt in Matt's shoes, it was more of all right, I'm gonna save my future game, maybe win some favor with one of these three, so that they take me to the end, just some assurance or something, because you're at 5 excuse me, you're at 5 idols are out of play by then. I don't know if people know that, but so you don't really have anywhere to turn. It's just a numbers game. So I think maybe that was Matt's perspective, is you're not going to be able to swing it anyways, so why not just buy favor?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Parker. I didn't mean
No, go ahead, Jared.
I just shine light on that. I was Matt came to me for sure, because exactly your point, Jordan was definitely not going to vote Sandra. And people really didn't know how close I was to Sandra. I was very shocked by that, just because Sandra and I played the whole game together. I think I was strategic in the sense of making sure, like, Sandra, we're not going to walk that often together. We're not going to talk that often, because to me, Jordan was constantly walking with Sandra to the challenges. It was like pretty obvious how close they were just from that. But my first, real conversation that's on film with Sandra was at, the final 6 there. So just really trying to downplay that. So Matt came up to me, and I was surprised that Matt did not throw out Sandra's name. He threw out Jordan's name. And Jordan at this point is getting a lot of attention for winning this game. People were basically like, it's either between Sandra and Jordan. And I'm like, in my head, man, I better, step it up. And in my head, I'm kind of like shocked a little bit as well. But I was surprised that Jordan was getting as much love as she did. And not to take away from her game, she played a great game, but I just didn't see her social game was great. Their strategy, I didn't see it maybe as well, but that's kind of what people were thinking. And I almost might have pulled the trigger there with Matt, but I felt in terms of making it to the final, it wasn't the best thing to do, especially because then how does that impact Sandra? So
a little nugget about Jordan staying in the game and her alliance with Sandra. I don't know if this was just lip service in the moment, but I think it was the episode it's the episode that Jason gets voted out in. So I think that's 11. If you remember, there's a pretty memorable conversation that Sandra and Jason have, and that's the one where Jason says, would you ever vote for me? And Sandra's like, no, I won't, and ends up voting for him, at the end. But in that conversation, Sandra actually pitches Jordan as the vote, and says something along the lines of, she's a beast, like, we got to get her out. And I don't know, it was just, that was maybe a moment that Jason might regret, in terms of, just finding anything. And I don't think he felt his back was up against the wall at that point. It wasn't. Obviously, it was a single vote out. But I think back at some of those moments to, like, again, how things maybe would have changed if Jason perks up a little bit and says, "Oh, okay, like, yeah, let's go Jordan." And again, I don't know if Sandra was just feeding him a line, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Jared, one of the things I noticed, I think to your uniqueness about how you went about, having your alliances, was that in any given time you almost had a shield from one alliance to another. You had this way of going about having a conversation and doing a confessional or walking to a challenge, and the attention wasn't on you. It was always on the last person that you had talked to, or someone else that a name was brought up during that confessional. So you didn't have that attention. That heat-seeking missile was not aimed at you. And kudos to you and props to you for being able to orchestrate some of those conversations and moves and get through it the way that you did. And with the whole Sandra thing, like, it really worked out well for you how Sandra and Jordan had conversations, and it was very well known and seen. Some of the bro alliances that were there, like, you found your way around and wiggled around, not, too obvious, but it was, it was just enough. And I watching some of the way that it was produced is great to see, but also seeing how firsthand, I remember from the game, seeing how you did it. So just a great job.
No, that means a lot, especially from you, 2-time winner. Thanks, Jason. But I think playing these games, I think too much of myself as a threat, and looking back, maybe some of the other people didn't see that as much. So maybe that was a factor, and I think the other thing that I was a little disappointed was I really put a lot of love to Sandra just being the ride or die, and sometimes I'm looking back and it felt unrequited, excuse me, and that kind of hurt a little bit watching back, but I wouldn't change a thing with it, and especially because Sandra did say during the season she would have used one of her idols on me if push came to shove, and that to me is enough to justify what I did, and so I'm happy that I was able to do this in as loyal but as strategic a way as possible.
Yeah, she also said that she was going to take you to the final three over Jordan too. So that was a little nugget just in terms of Sandra's gameplay. I don't know if that was out of loyalty or out of gameplay in terms of Jordan being a threat. But to circle back on Jared and his deception, if you will, with really pulling the wool over everybody's eyes to convince everybody to vote for Sandra twice. I was dying. If you rewatch Tribal and like when Sandra plays her idol, Jared's fake out of acting surprised while he's sitting there is hilarious. It's so funny, and it's hard to kind of showcase that because we only have one camera on the Tribe. But I thought that was awesome. Oscar nomination stuff.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't want someone to look behind me and be like, "Did you do that?" And so I really wanted to make a surprise face, just so I wouldn't burn like the Matt or Jabbar, bridge or something like that.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to bring up earlier, which was not important, was Nathan, to what you said earlier about Jabbar. You quoted some of the favorite lines that he said that you really enjoyed. I loved his final words, particularly like the first or second line he says, because he says, "I got voted out and I absolutely deserved it. I backstabbed nearly everybody. Karma finally got me." And I can really appreciate a player who's that way, because I feel like a lot of the times people they say, "Good game, I'm excited," or like, "Good game, you guys did a good job, good luck to who's left." But I feel like people are a little like salty about. They're like, "Why did they vote me out? There was a better move on the table." And I can appreciate someone who's like, "Oh no, I shouldn't have even made it this far. I absolutely should have gone home."
I do think it's kind of a thing where I don't know if it's a missed opportunity from people or if it's just a bias they have, but I see so often people be like, "Oh, that was a dumb move voting me out." and they're like all upset about it. I feel like it's the default, but Jared was actually hitting this earlier. To me, it always made more sense. Like, yeah, they should have voted me out. That made more sense. And I really appreciate that approach from him. Not only is it not bitter, but it also, I think, enhances you as like your game in a certain way.
I agree. I that's the kind of approach that if I ever played again, I would like to take. It's like, oh, I should have been voted out. You know, who knows what could have happened. So I really appreciate that approach from him. But no, Jabbar, he's gonna get voted out 4-1. All the old original Loas officially knocked out, and we got our final four. Sorry, we got our final four. Very solid final four. Was there anything else about?
If you would have just shown this boot list, you would assume something completely different than what actually happened. Like, you'd think, oh, it's kind of like a pagonging here, but the path to there was absolutely insane.
It was a crazy path. It was not a straightforward pagonging at all. And you know, even some of the best seasons of Survivor have a pagonging, but like it's not like a straightforward shot, and this one wasn't either. Let's see. Was there anything else about episode 12 that y'all wanted to mention or discuss before?
I'm smiling because I got to mention the Pagan. A quick story with Jabbar. Jabbar's playing it off to me like he knows nothing about Survivor, at all. Even though he knows a buddy of mine who puts on LRGs. Now, it wasn't like the me and Sandra thing where he messaged me before. It just so happened. Maybe he's seen me before. But at one point, Jabbar tells me at 5 that he thought we were just going to Pagan the Loas. And I'm like, how are you using that word Pagan? And you know, like, come on now, girl.
You're saying that's not common for a casual Survivor watcher? I'm sure Jordan knew what Pagong meant.
Yeah, I guess my only note on this episode, when we cast, we get a lot of questions about like, what happens when you get voted out? Like, or do I just leave? Like I don't. There's always hesitancy over spending the time, the effort, the money, coming out, potentially getting voted out early. And one, I guess to answer that question logistically, it's a hang. There's the Ponderosa that I alluded to earlier, where Lisa runs, and it's basically like just a big hangout for the rest of the weekend, and you get to watch certain aspects of the rest of the game. But the reason I bring it up is, I kind of wanted to trickle that a bit into production a bit this year, to where the Sweet Dreams compilation and the recap of the season, it fit well, like I said before, but I think it's just a good moment to bring everybody back into the fold. And like I said, we started editing these back in like October, so it had been a while since you've seen a lot of faces, especially non-jury members. So it was just a way to kind of bring them back, show some highlights of them, and kind of put a button, on the season. It would have been, I think, a little out of place to do something like that, just the way things shaked out in the finale. So I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad we were able to kind of get some old faces back into the episode.
And if I could just comment on Sweet Dreams, because I had that point too. I thought from a literary, I'm going to use that word, a literary standpoint, it was great because it really showed the transition between night and day. Because when I'm trying to sleep at night, now granted, I wasn't thinking about Troy and some of the early boots, but I was thinking about a lot of stuff, and I felt like that complication that Brett put on really symbolized just kind of our mindsets going to bed and heading into the end game. So I really thought symbolically, literary, that was really well done on Brett's part, and just a great way to showcase everyone, to Brett's point. While I have the mic, I just want to say one thing just about the production in general. So I'm thinking about like what makes Survivor Angelica the gold standard, because you've seen a lot of Facebook comments, a lot of people are saying that, and and obviously well deserved. And if I could put just my finger on one thing, it's that this entire production is so outwardly focused on first the players and then secondarily putting together a great product for the viewers. I mean, Brett, you're putting in 13 to 17 hours a week, on these episodes. You're a finalist in yourself, Jason. You're a player and you have a personality, but Chris Zerbel, all you guys are just so always focused on yourselves, even though you and your own outright are great players and tremendous personalities, and just makes me feel, great as a player. That, I've been shined in this light. You give me this edit. So just thank you. And then the last thing is, confessionals have been a huge part of my game, subconsciously, now consciously, because it's the one part where you can actually control your game. There's no gameplay, there's no twist. It's just what you want to talk about. And I have to give a quick shout out to the people that did the confessionals: Mark, Tori, Taylor, Alyssa, and Amy. Particularly Mark, because I was a pain in the ass with, like, I want to be positioned like here, I want to get away from the tribes. And Mark, was saying that it was during the game, it's great to see, your humor, but also your vulnerability. To have like a compliment like that, to have Kurt tell you that, you're doing a great job during the game. Tori is laughing at your jokes during confessionals. Just really gives me the extra confidence boost playing in this game, when some things aren't working out. So I just wanted to give, a little long-winded, but just wanted to give that shout out to production and particularly the people that do the confessionals.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that, Jared. I think it just goes back to the great people that we have on crew, and those helpers are key. I mean, those people that you mentioned that are doing camera are not people that are planning the game with us throughout the year. They come in at the end. They pay their own money to stay on site at the campground to just help. They're vital. I mean, we would not have, we don't have the hands to run all these cameras and do all these confessionals. And so the second piece to that is I appreciate you saying that about the confessionals, because going forward, if any upcoming or new cast members watch this, it really is a big component to our game. Like, we don't have the opportunity, and our game isn't such that there are these big CBS style shoots where you have the whole tribe together, right? And they're in their shelter and they're talking, and CBS has a luxury where they're sitting around for an entire day, right? Just shooting the shit. And so the confessionals really do drive the narrative and the storyline, and that's kind of where we get that storytelling from. And they were like second to none this year. I mean, I could go on for examples, but you guys have seen it. So yeah, message to any future players is do not feel bashful or shy in those moments, because it's what makes our episodes great, and it's what brings people in along on the journey. So yeah, it's never a matter of like you're going to spoil your game or anything like that. It's the opposite. You're bringing people along for your game so that they can see it.
Speaking of confessional blocking, I did want to share one last image here. Another one that should go to the Louvre or something of that nature. I found this screenshot beautiful.
Nathan, I didn't know you had the Raz in you, man. That was well done. Well done. Thank you, guys. I really enjoy this. I mean, as a player, watching this, it's such a blessing, not to kill that word, but it's like I'm playing the game all over again. And then, to feel like I'm like with Aaron Andrews doing a sideline reporting, with you guys. It's just really a cool experience. So thank you, for having us on and, having me on.
Absolutely. Well, I have one last question, then we'll close it out. Jason, are applications for the next season still open, or are they closed and it's on to casting?
So we're closed for this season, but I guess what I'll always tell people is apply anyways. We do have a website where you can go on and apply. Anything that pops up between now and next season, we'll obviously revisit those. We try to. We had a little snafu this year with just getting back to everybody. We don't always get back to people with a no answer unless we've interviewed you. So we're going to work on some of our communications. That's one of the things that I think we're going to try for moving forward. Usually it was just like if we interviewed you, you would hear a yes or a no. But anybody else that applied, the other 164 people that applied, we may not have responded back with even a no. And I can understand where that might upset some people. So we're going to try to communicate a little better with things like that. But we always encourage everyone to apply, everyone and anyone. You don't have to be a huge fan of Survivor. You just want to get away for a weekend and make some new friends and just try your shot at, social strategy. Please apply. One thing I will note is that to make our lives easier, we want to see videos. We have ways to do it. If you apply and we don't have the sublink for adding a video, we'll respond back with an email that will say, please respond back with a video of some sort, an application video, and be original, be authentic. Don't put on an act. Just be yourself. Tell us about you. And, please check your spam folders because a lot of people were getting emails that went right to their spam. They weren't even seeing it. So, we do our best to communicate as best we can. We're doing this out of a volunteer, basis, and what little free time we all have. It's crazy that we make this game what it is, and it's so highly regarded by everyone. I mean, it blows my mind at the comments and the feedback that we receive from everybody. And we just do this with what little spare time we have, and it's amazing what we put out. So I thank everybody that applies. I thank you, Nathan and Parker, for putting us on the map and recapping all these. It's so much fun to see what you guys have to say every week. And our cast, our crew, everybody. I can't say it enough that I appreciate everybody. Like, it is so humbling to have the thoughts and the emotions and everything that come to what we have. So thank you.
Thank you so much for those kind words about what Nathan and I do. Like I said at the start, it's really easy when it's fun to watch, and you can tell there's a lot of care put behind it. But that does mean a lot that you guys like it and enjoy it. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Nathan, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Nothing in particular. The only other thing I will say about this group of finalists in particular, it really does feel like you all just had the stars align here for a really, really strong end game. It's one of those seasons like a Kagiyan where just a lot of really, really great people made it far.
Wait till you see the finale.
I'm very excited. Speaking of, that's going to end it for this podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in live, who commented, all those things. We will be back for the finale. This was the penultimate episode, so we'll be back for the finale. Scheduling on that, with it being Easter Sunday coming up, not sure if we'll either get it before or afterwards, but we will get to it relatively soon. Very excited to see how the season close out. It's been a really, really good one to watch. I want to thank again Jason, Brett, and Jared for joining us. This was a great panel. I know it went a little bit longer than normal, so I appreciate all y'all's time. I had a great time just walking it through with y'all. It's one thing to get a player perspective. It's one thing to get a production perspective. But when you can get both at the same time, that's just really cool. So thank you guys each for providing your perspectives, and we'll see you guys next time.